Thank you very much. Thank you, Michel, also. As you said, the question of God's existence is indeed a fundamental and passionate issue. But first, I wanted to tell you that it's of course very impressive to be here at Princeton, the site of key moments in the history of science, thanks to many leading figures who have made a lasting impact. Our goal in writing this book was to try to summarize as much as we can all the available knowledge on this matter in philosophy, morality, and history, but above all in science, because this field is particularly interesting as we have been witnessing what we call a great reversal. This great reversal is that for 4 centuries, from Copernicus to Brock, Galileo, Newton, Laplace, and Darwin, science seemed to be able to extend the world without the need for the hypothesis of God. And by the end of this, Marx and Freud, who claimed to be scientists, even tried to make people believe that evolution was toxic. It was the fear of the people. All this led to a very powerful materialist and scientific intellectual current that dominated the past. But over the last 150 years, slowly but surely, things began to change. The series of scientific revolutions seemed to converge into 3 key facts. First, Einstein demonstrated, before coming to Princeton, that we live in what we call space-time, where space, time, and matter are inextricably linked. You cannot have one without the 2 others. Second, we have strong reasons to believe, as Michel said, that all deaths are an absolute beginning. And insist on one point, it's not only the beginning of time and matter, it's also the beginning of space. Before, if you can say this, there was no space. Space at the beginning, and of course this has immense implications, physical implications. And as soon as you have space, you have immediately time and matter also in the same moment. Second, we also discovered, as Steve developed, that our universe is exponentially fine-tuned in all its parameters. We are speaking of the initial data of the universe, of the value and ratio of the 4 forces of the universe, but also of all the laws of quantum mechanics, physics, chemistry, and biology. All this is infinitely and adjusted and calibrated. So, what can we deduce from this? How can we think about this? To keep it simple, I will say that if space, time, and matter all began at the same time, it's logical to conclude that the cause at the origin of this emergence is necessarily of a different sort. In other words, the cause must be non-spatial, non-temporal, and non-material. It must also have the power to create and regulate everything, so that atoms could be stable with very precise value, stars to burn for 10 billion years, and complex life could develop. All things that you know today were extremely unlikely. And what is surprising is that these simple arguments throughout science, with this we approach the basic definition of God, which is that of philosophy and religion. That is to say, a transcendent being outside the universe who created and adjusted everything so that humanity and all life could one day come into being. So, God is a real possibility. And the question is, what are the alternatives? To find it, there is 2 problems to try to solve without invoking God, the beginning and the fine-tuning. So, regarding the fine-tuning, the solution divides what the theory of the multiverse, as we said back today. And it's here at Princeton that Hugh Everett proposed the first version of this. But this theory has four problems. First, this is 100% speculative and unfalsifiable. Second, it has difficulty explaining beauty and harmony that is present everywhere in our universe. So, to be coherent with the extreme probability implied by fine-tunings, we would have to postulate truly staggering numbers of universes, on the order of 10 to the power of 500 serial universes in physics for everyone like ours, and even more colossal figure in biology. Is it reasonable to accept such figure? Not sure. And last but not least, there is an even more important problem. Because if you have to select all the parameters of the universe in a very tiny range, the natural process or machine, if you will, that creates universes must itself be fine-tuned. But who then did fine-tune the latest machine? This is why Stephen Hawking declared the multiverse theory dead. And he said the same about the theory of everything, which imagined that all parameters of the universe are tied together by a meta law that allows no other value than the one they are today. All this is problematic, said Lee Smolin, Paul Davies, and many others, especially since a large number of cosmologists have worked on string theory over the past 40 years, with great imagination and creativity, but without convincing results. In the end, some have asked the question, is the multiverse really an explanation of a desperate answer? And there is nothing yet at this time to attempt to extend the fine-tuning problem. So, apart from the hypothesis of God, it's currently very difficult to find a convincing solution to this problem of fine-tuning. After this, for the beginning, and regarding the beginning, it's the same. Several solutions have been proposed, but none of them are convincing either. If we imagine an infinite amount of time in the past, you will have an infinite number of cyclic universes with Big Bang and peak crunches. But in fact, it does not work for four reasons. First, entropy should be at its maximum now, and it's not the case. Second, black holes should be very numerous now also, and it's not the case. Third, the cosmological constant should have been dominant after a few cycles, which is the case now, but only after 8 billion years after the Big Bang. And four, finally, the universe might not be homogeneous and isotropic as it is in fact now. So for all those reasons, the Big Bang and Big Crunch is not an option. What else can we try to explain the beginning? Laurent Strauss introduced the very negative but not very serious idea of a universe created from nothing. But what he calls nothing is in reality something, and absolutely not nothing. Another attempt, other speaks of the quantum fluctuation to extend the beginning, but this cannot be the beginning, as the possibility of the Stephen presupposes that space already exists. Finally, Stephen Hawking once imagined that because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. But our friend John Lennox replied, nonsense remains nonsense, even when taught by the most famous scientists. At the end, none of these attempts work. And what remains there? In fact, we are putting in our book the astonishment of the greatest scientists regarding the discoveries of modern science. Wonder and awe, as Jennifer said. And it's amazing. We gather quotes from technical scientists, including 63 of the Christ revealed, who observed that some of the greatest scientists, often agnostic or atheists, spontaneously talk about God, miracles, or astonishing coincidences when describing incredible settings and complexity that allows us to exist. Nobody puts a gun on their head forcing them to talk about God, miracles, or coincidences. They did it because they could not do otherwise. And Princeton has often been the witness of this. Let's remember, for example, the typical case of Fred Hoyle, the teacher of Robert Wilson, who also had an history with Princeton and who wrote the first preface of our book. At the beginning, Hoyle was an atheist, and because of this, he fought against Job Lemaitre, and he coined the term Big Bang to mock the concept. Yet, he converted later, becoming a believer, because he discovered that the triple alpha reaction that enables carbon synthesis in stars would be impossible without an excited state of carbon at a very precise energy level, unknown at that time. He concluded that a super intellect deliberately designed the law of nuclear physics. A little later, Robert Tick was the first to mention here at Princeton another imperfect fine-tuning, that of the initial expansion rate of the universe, which had to be accurate to 15 decimal places, otherwise we will not be here to talk about it. Another topic with Richard Feynman here at Princeton also, he said that the fine-tuning constant alpha, which is the T of electromagnetism, and without which contextual spin will not be possible, is a magic number, one of the greatest in the history of physics. And that, you might say, the hand of whom wrote that number. You will find dozens of examples like this in our book. Many, of course, in physics, but a lot also in biology. And the conclusion is simple and always the same. All the parameters that determine our world are unbelievably adjusted and calibrated, and that inspires wonder. Another very important example, perhaps the greatest fine-tuning of all, was presented by Roger Penrose in 1989. He calculated that to start off the universe in a state of low entropy required for galaxies, stars, and life to exist, the free actor had to end the distribution of energy and mass at the origin of the universe with an accuracy of 1 part in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123, which is of course a 9 billion precision. Can all this be explained by chance? It's clearly quite impossible. As Freeman Dyson said here at Princeton, it's as if the universe must, in some sense, have known that we are coming. And here at Princeton, we cannot forget, of course, also the logical truth of God of Kirk-Podell, and we have a chapter in our book about this. In summary, for all these reasons, and after investigating also the fields of philosophy, morality, and history, it seems that the thesis of the existence of a creator God is more convincing than ever. Yes, there is a great universal, especially in science, confirmed by a lot of books and publications. We are not the only ones saying this. We have a lot of books and publications saying exactly the same, but for the moment, the public remains largely unaware of this. What should be done then? As Michel said, it's a very sensitive, passionate, and emotional subject. We wrote a chapter, very original, that shows that all the scientists who discovered the Big Bang were violently persecuted by atheist regimes in Russia, Germany, and even China. The ideology exists. Too much ideology is an obstacle to open, honest debate, but ideology exists also in the West and also in our time. For example, you have George Orwell who said we cannot accept supernatural creation and philosophical grounds. And you have also Richard Bonnassies who said we are a fear commitment, a commitment to materialism. So we know that with this kind of approach, discussions are going to be very difficult, but we have to try it in a way. We believe that a broad debate on this new question is necessary. This is the purpose of the release of our book in the US this October. In conclusion, I would like to remind you again of the story that took place in 1936 here at Princeton. Einstein, who had been a refugee for 3 years, was already a legend. He was unapproachable. But a sixth grade student named Phyllis Wright, probably in this room, managed to receive a letter with this question: do scientists pray? Einstein was a bit surprised, of course, but about 10 days later, the little girl received from him a letter which is now famous in the whole world. Einstein wrote in German, "Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science become convinced that such spirit is manifest in the Lord of the universe, one that is vastly superior to that of man." In fact, this is a very powerful idea, and an idea that Einstein was the first to express here at Princeton a few decades before the discoveries of the many fine-tunings of the universe. To finish, let me thank you all for your time. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Jennifer, Steve, Eden, also everybody. It was really a great honor and a big joy to be standing with you all and to talk of all this with you in such an incredible place here at Princeton. Thank you very much.